I'd like to speak about two words from ancient Greek, which for me hold tremendous significance today as ever. The two words are CHRONOS and KAIROS. CHRONOS, of course, spelled CHRONOS, KAIROS, KAIROS. Chronos, of course, is the root of chronology, chronological, and thus refers to the sequential aspect of time, or what we commonly refer to as linear time. Whereas Kairos refers to a time lapse, or a moment when everything happens. Or one could say a moment when anything can happen. It is for me a departure from chronos, from chronological time. If we see chronos as linear time, then it is right and logical to see kairos as lateral time. Of course, another way of saying that is chronos is horizontal. Past, present, future. Time is measured on a horizontal line or graph. And kairos, then, is vertical. To be more precise, it would be better to say spiral, a vertical spiral. It's not a straight line. The spiral is a perfect representation for me because it is spinning in all directions. Not only that, it is the diameter of the spiral widens and narrows. It can do both. It's a wave. The quantum physicists, like Einstein, saw time and space in this way as waves of energy, like water. Light and sound, we know, are simply that. They're waves. They can be measured, in a sense, as waves or frequencies. So, chronos is quantitative, while kairos is qualitative. Significant difference. There's two measurements or definitions of time. The first is purely quantitative, which for me means nothing. There is no past, there's no future. Kairos, on the other hand, is qualitative. It is about the quality of time, which brings me to think about the Mayan calendar and the brilliant work of Jose Arguelles, who I had the pleasure to meet once. And their website for the Mayan calendar, at least one of the sites, is titled The Art of Time. Of course, this is another definition for kairos. Kairos is the art of time. Chronos is the quantification or compartmentalization of time, while kairos is the art of time, the quality of time. In other words, kairos is all about the now, the eternal moment. In ancient Greece, kairos also means season. This is fascinating to me. In modern Greek, kairos has come to mean weather. Also very interesting that the meaning has shifted slightly from season to weather, because we associate seasons with weather, with climate. What I'm sensing is the ancient Greeks had a broader definition of the word season, i.e. kairos, which has to do with the moment, the season, the quality of this moment, the temperature, the color, the visceral experience of this moment. And it is fascinating that today, and perhaps for a long time, people have been fascinated with the weather and hopelessly, well, with some success, developing technologies that can measure the weather and predict, to forecast the weather days and even weeks in advance. Of course, this can be helpful for maritime excursions, for all kinds of reasons, for farmers, professional sporting events. However, we know, if we've followed weather forecasting at all, we know that it is not perfect. In fact, the forecasters know this too. That's why they often say 70% chance of rain, 60% chance of snow, 30% chance of rain or hail or wet snow. They don't know. They're guessing. If they say anything but 0 or 100%, we know that they're guessing. And even when they say 100% chance of showers, there's always a possibility that the rain will not come. The weather is not subordinate to the weather forecasters, no matter how sophisticated their devices are for reading it. The weather has its own agenda. The season is what it is. We cannot change it, although I think certain powers that be have worked on certain technologies that can have an effect on weather. And that's a fascinating subject as well. I'm speaking about projects like the HARP project. So these are topics that could and will be addressed on my internet radio network. Because perhaps my sole and only purpose of exploration and research these last 16 years plus, but especially since the year 2000, has been the now, the present moment, devoting my life and my research to living in the now and understanding this phenomenon being in the present moment at a deep level in every way. In ancient Greek rhetoric, kairos is, quote, a passing instant when an opening appears, which must be driven through with force if success is to be achieved. This is a brilliant quote for me. The mystic, the shaman, must, in my view, understand this principle of the portal, the gateway. This point of departure. In fact, for me, all shamanic ceremonies are directly involved, invested with this very concept of kairos, and passing through this opening, this portal, which according to the ancient Greeks must be driven through with force if success is to be achieved. What do they mean? When they say with force, obviously to me they mean power. Force means power, which is chi, which is a life force. Thus a yogi, a shaman, mystic, understands this principle deeply. Chi is everything. For a successful ceremony, it is incumbent, is essential for the success of that ceremony that the participants cultivate enough chi, enough power, enough force to drive through this passing instant we call kairos, to pass through the portal. Portals appear and disappear in this so-called chronology of time. The shaman, the mystic, is forever alert and aware for these portals, for him or herself, and more importantly for their sannyasins, for their student, to show the student the portal, to guide them to that gateway, because, like the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink it. Such is the work of the shaman. The shaman can lead the sannyasin to the portal. However, he cannot make the sannyasin go through it. The sannyasin must build up enough force, life force, chi, power, if they are to be successful in driving through this passing instant we call kairos. There are many techniques to approach this portal, this kairos, to cultivate it, to make it a routine rather than an exception. Mastery, then, for me, can be defined this way. A master is one who has mastered the art of time, the art of jumping out of chronos and into kairos, the eternal moment. And speaking about this recently, an analogy came to me, which I find quite beautiful and poignant. The analogy is a spaceship or a submarine. Because if you think about it, traveling through space in some kind of spaceship, a flying saucer, a rocket ship, a space shuttle, is relatively the same principle as traveling in a submarine under the sea, a la Jacques Cousteau, who traveled to great depths. He invented and developed ships, submarine crafts that could go very deep into the sea and even into lakes, lagoons. Jacques Cousteau loved to go into lagoons, as I recall. I visited one lake on the big island of Hawaii many times. It's a beautiful place to swim. Which, according to lore and scientists now, has no bottom. In other words, it is, or was formed from volcanic activity. This lake seems to have no bottom. In diameter, circumference, this lake is not so large. One can swim across it quite easily. What I heard was, when I was there in Hawaii, that Jacques Cousteau came to this specific lake with his equipment, and they dove down, and then down some more, and they could not find the bottom. They went quite deep. I'm not sure exactly how deep. Anyway, I digress. The analogy is, CHRONOS is to be inside the spacecraft, inside the submarine, and subject, therefore, to the laws that govern spacecraft travel or submarine travel, which means one must maintain a livable, breathable space within the craft, enough oxygen, and all the elements that one can survive and breathe within the spacecraft. Knowing then, of course, that on the outside of the craft is danger, certain death. So, in this analogy, the escape hatch on the spacecraft or the submarine represents Kairos. It is the portal to the unknown, to the season of Kairos, the eternal now. So isn't it funny that in that deck between the inner and the outer door of the space hatch, the exit hatch, humans will play with Kairos by putting on special diving suits, space suits, which permit them to exit from the hatch and into outer space or into deep waters without danger. Of course, there's always danger then. What if the space suit malfunctions or the oxygen tanks in the scuba diving suit are depleted to the extent that the person can no longer breathe inside the diving suit. Then the same principle applies. We can see that. Then it doesn't matter if the person is wearing a spacesuit or a diving suit, they're still connected to the ship, the spacecraft. In other words, they're still in chronos, still trapped in linear time. Thus, to see this metaphor correctly, kairos is to go through the escape hatch without the spacesuit, without the oxygen tanks on the diving suit. It is total liberation. And I will, in the radio network, because this is such a key topic, I'll be devoting a lot of time and discussion, inviting other experts in related fields to talk about these themes. And I will mention some films, because I love film, and I have a huge repertoire of films on virtually every subject. For me, any subject that has value in this life experience. One film that comes to mind right away is called Gravity, with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney having a disaster in outer space at a space station with pieces of meteorites hitting the space station. It's a fascinating story on this theme. If we look at the story of the movie Gravity from the perspective of Chronos and Kairos, it becomes really fascinating. It's one thing I will talk about when I speak about films in general, is that the viewer has an essential role, just as in live theater. It's the same with film. Even though the film has been made and edited and canned, everyone's perception of the film is unique to that person, to the perceiver. And thus, it is important for me to talk about this. If one wants to experience the film and appreciate it, it depends to a large degree, if not completely, on their receptivity and one's ability to see and feel, not to look at the film, but to see it, and perhaps gain a glimpse of what the writer, the director, the actors, the entire team are trying to produce. And that's a fascinating subject too, where and I will speak to some filmmakers and directors to see how successful they are in bringing that whole team together of actors, camera people, photographers, all the technicians, costume design, everyone into a crystallized understanding, a shared vision of the story, what they're trying to present. It's a fascinating topic. Again, this is where the great directors, I feel, are separated from the mediocre directors in film and theater, so on. The master director, in my book, is the one who succeeds to a large degree in this impossible task, bringing multiple, often hundreds of people together in this project and transmitting to them and through them a unified vision for the story and for the execution of that story. This is why I'm sure many of the masters in film work with the same assistant directors, directors of photography, lighting, costume, and often the same actors too, because they've already created this harmony of vision and understanding, mutual understanding, that it only makes sense that they would want to work with the same people again and again. Kairos is such an essential theme, and I love that it comes from the Greeks, we consider the founding culture of the West, the whole Western civilization. And there was a fascinating time period, the time of the Greek Empire. Because of course it became very bloody at times and divided. Philosophical divisions. So I'll end with this. The metaphor I'm speaking about when I talk about the spacecraft as CHRONOS and the escape hatch as the doorway to Kairos, it's a metaphor. For me, it's all metaphor. I'm talking about the mind. CHRONOS then represents ego. Ego is attachment, which means linear time. Right? When one is oriented with the ego in the left brain, one is, in a sense, trapped within CHRONOS, within the linear time frame. Quantitative, measuring everything. If one is successful, even for a moment, to pass through the escape hatch into Kairos, which is timelessness, the art of time, the season, then and only then is one free of mind. One has, at least for that moment, attained the glorious state we can call no mind, also known as samadhi, enlightenment. This very moment inspires all, if not all, almost all of the greatest mantras, which are prayers, such as Ek Onkar, one creator, one creation. One can only understand Ek Onkar from the Kairos point of view. CHRONOS doesn't have a clue about Ek Onkar. Sat Nam, Sat, truth, love, Nam, my identity, my name. I am that. Truth is my name. Love is my true identity. Again, one cannot truly understand Sat Nam from the point of view of CHRONOS. It's a joke. Only Kairos knows Sat Nam. Vaheguru. Wow. God is great. This indescribable bliss of wisdom, awareness, is only attainable, knowable from this place of the unknown we call Kairos. Vaheguru, from the point of view of CHRONOS, is just some strange words from some ancient language we call Gurmukhi, which has even older roots in Sanskrit. To know Vaheguru is to know Kairos. To know Ekankar is to know Kairos. Sat Nam, Kairos. And thus, of course, I will be sharing mantra music, my original compositions, through the radio broadcast network as well. These are, for me, the most, if not one of the most powerful medicine for bridging that gap between Chronos and Kairos, for bringing us to the doorway, the portal to Kairos, to eternity now. Timelessness. Akal. Murit. Sat Siddhi Akal. Akal, meaning timelessness, deathlessness. Akal. Akal.